Hello, New Wave of British Heavy Metal.com here. Today it's the 17th of June 2023. Quick favour as always, please, and that's if you wouldn't mind subscribing to the channel. That'd be excellent, big help and appreciated, so please click that button if you would. Righty ho, today White Spirit, and they've put out a special edition of their album Right or Wrong, which was originally issued about a year ago. Was it July last year, 2023? And the original Right or Wrong was of course their triumphant return after some 4 decades following the self-titled debut that they put out all the way back in the New Wave of British Heavy Metal days in 1980. That to this day, 43 years later, still remains one of my favourite and most listened to albums from those days, and it's a stand-up classic, that debut. But there's nothing wrong with Right or Wrong either. Of course, Right or Wrong was or is the lost album the band were working on as a follow-up to the debut back in the 80s, with when Brian Howe, the late great Brian Howe, came in on vocals before the band would split without that album being released. But of course, the brief history to that is that Mick Tucker and Mal Pearson somehow rediscovered the tapes, and some of the songs of which still had Howe's vocals intact on them, and they set about reissuing that as Right or Wrong, assisted by a lineup of guest musicians including Lee Small, Russell Gilbrook and Neil Murray, to name but 3. Now, I reviewed the original Right or Wrong last July, and I'll put a link to that video somewhere, either a card or in the link below. And a fine album it is too. It's proper classic rock with some bite to it. If I can try and quote briefly from my original view of Right or Wrong, I described it as an excellent album of 1980s sounding classic rock with a fresh feel and a fine listen from start to finish. Different in style to the debut, probably because Howe's vocal style is much different to original vocalist Bruce Ruff, and had Right or Wrong been released back in the day, it would surely have gone down well, as it surely will now. 10 beefy rockers full of crisp riffs and leads from Tucker, Pearson keys nicely up in the mix to pomp and prog things up nicely on Don't Say No. And that still applies. It still applies to this special edition as well. And here we are about a year later, and so Mick and Mal have put together this special edition of Right or Wrong, and the notes in the CD booklet give a little hint, shall we say, that perhaps all might not have been well with various circumstances surrounding the original issue last year, and now Mick and Mal have put this special edition together. And if I can quote briefly from the CD booklet to give you a little bit of a flavour of what's going on. It says, following the album release in July 22, certain facts came to light, some of which were as unbelievable as the story of the recording itself. This led to myself, this is Mal's words, and Mick to release this special edition, which includes rewritten tracks from our back catalogue and some tracks which were to be included on the original but did not make it at the time. So it was planned originally to be a 4-track EP, but instead, they've over-delivered somewhat, and we've got basically the full album again in a slightly different version. All the good stuff that made the original so good are here, with the exception being that on the original version they did a cover of Bad Company's Holy Water, which of course Brian Howe was in Bad Company at that time. And Rock and Roll now becomes a nice bouncy chunky instrumental. And the additions are re-recorded and updated versions of Backs to the Grind, which of course was White Spirit's single from the old days, and Midnight Chaser, which was the opening track on the debut album. Both the new oldies, is that a contradiction, sound fresh and feature new vocalist Alex Stahl, because there's a new lineup to the band as well. Excuse me a sec. Got a little, sorry, I had to pause it briefly there. I had a little frog in the throat. But anyway, there's a new lineup now of the band, which Mick and Mal have put together, which includes Alex on vocals. Then we've got the excellent Mickey Crystal Steve Ireland and Mark Jackson added to the band as well. The good news is that they're working on a new album which is tentatively scheduled for early next year, 2024, so that's good news. Until then, if you're an old White Spirit fan like I am, or you just like good proper honest classic rock with that Nwabum vibe to it, pick up either the original or the special edition and I'm sure you won't be disappointed. I'll put links below in the description to both, so you can do that if you like. But it's great that White Spirit are still active, new lineup, new album to look forward to as well. So in the meantime, please subscribe to the channel before you go, that'd be great. And as always, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and take care.